These are the Spirit Rangers, completely original Power Rangers creations that did not exist in the Sentai Jungle Fury is based on, Geki Ranger. Visually, they're inspired by the Jungle Master modes, which would make sense, but they also have stylized designs to resemble their respective animals, the Elephant Ranger being the best in terms of being able to easily identify the animal motif. The three masters control the Spirit Rangers like puppets, they themselves under the control of the Phantom Beast generals. Naturally, being masters, and because we need to establish their badass credentials, they defeat our heroes. My only complaint about this fight scene is the music, which is generic, matrixy techno music instead of something dark and ominous to highlight how serious the situation is. RJ during the fight sees his father's spirit through the helmet, which causes Master Finn to break free of the control, and through his chains, and attack the other masters to break them free of the spell. This causes the Spirit Rangers to disappear, but his rebellion is short-lived as he's brought down by the Phantom Beasts. RJ, figuring that they're controlling the Spirit Rangers via a form of mental projection, whips up a device to try to jam the transmission. Unfortunately, it burns out after its first test, and because this is a television show, he doesn't try to refine or repair it. While briefly freed from Dai Shi's control, Finn is able to contact RJ and tell him he has to take the risk, and they'll find the answer. In the following episode, One Last Second Chance, RJ configures their big-ass cannon weapon that they got a while ago, so that instead of it utilizing the three Ranger spirits to fire, it'll instead channel the spirits of the bat, elephant, and shark. The idea is that it'll counter the spirits.
Now, I tuned the wavelength so that the cannon blast should cancel your opponent's spirit.
Whoa, did I miss something here? If you destroy the spirit, couldn't you destroy the master?
I don't know.
Fortunately, things aren't going well for the House of Dai Shi. Finn tries to get through to Jared again by reminding him of his time at the Paisano Academy, and this time his words have an impact. When one of the Phantom Beasts tortures Finn, Dai Shi defends him on the pretense of needing to keep him in good health to be used for the Spirit Rangers. The cannon works on the Shark Ranger, but instead of completely destroying him, it instead seals him inside of the Crystal Eye. Dai Shi orders the Crystal Eye be hidden where it'll never be found again. The drama of potentially killing his father is sadly lessened due to RJ treating it only like a minor bummer instead of soul-crushing guilt and depression. The Crystal Eye is tossed out towards the ocean, but is intercepted by Flit, who brings it to RJ and explains what happened. In a previous episode, we had learned Flit's backstory, and he had befriended RJ. The problem is that the starlight they needed for the ritual to release him from the Crystal Eye has passed now. However, RJ recalls the telescope from before, figuring he captured the starlight inside of it. He's right, of course, and he's able to restore his father. The two storm Dai Shi's palace to rescue the other masters, leaving the Rangers to fight the Spirit Rangers and a monster. The two make it to the masters and free them. They're intercepted by Dai Shi and continue to tell him that Jared will be free of his influence thanks to his lion spirit. They make their escape to help the Rangers, appearing in their Spirit Ranger forms. Before the fight begins, though, Camille notes to herself that she wants to get her hands on the Rinzin power that the Phantom Beasts possess. And it's a pretty awesome fight to see 8 members of a single team like this. Last time we did so was in SPD, and that was really only for the finale and not all together, made even better by the ever-awesome theme music power-up. Of course, despite them later saying that they're now fully-fledged members of the team, they're also original footage and voiced by guest stars, meaning the show is restricted by what they can do with them. Next up is our season requisite clip show, Don't Blow That Dough, which is quite possibly the weirdest clip show setup yet. And yet even the name reveals the episode is about saving money. Rinshi gets inside the loft by disguising himself as a TV repairman and uses a device to suck the Rangers into the TV, forcing them to participate in a game show called Blow That Dough. Yeah. Anyway, they have to answer questions about the series by Camille and this guy. That set up the clips. I admit, it's an old-school Power Rangers kind of weirdness, but at the same time makes me wonder why the hell nobody else in the evil forces tries to access the command dojo before now. In the next episode, Tigers Fall, Lions Rise, Weiger is sent after Casey since both have a tiger animal spirit. It wouldn't surprise me if Jared is coming through again more in Dai Shi, since he still has lingering jealousy over Casey. However, we do learn something else about the Phantom Beasts.
They fought against the humans, but they also tried to overthrow Dai Shi. Now, if Dai Shi forgives them and they all join powers, Dai Shi could be unstoppable.
Naturally, this happens right afterwards, bonding their animal spirits to his and giving him an upgraded look. His first act is to appoint Camille as a Phantom Beast General.
She shall have power equal to any Phantom Beast General.
If I can have a say here, I'd like the spirit of the Phoenix.
And then Camille goes and blows up a planet, forcing Dai Shi and the Phantom Beasts to fight the Shi'ar. Weiger manages to steal away Casey's animal spirit, but because he fails to destroy the Rangers despite his added power, Dai Shi takes away his Rinzin power and banishes him. Weiger calls out Casey to try to destroy him, but without the Rinzin power, the two are more equally matched. Casey saves his life as he starts to fall off a cliff, explaining that it's just what they do before he heads off. Weiger, however, starts literally fading away. Later, Weiger leads him to a spot where the Rangers are trapped from earlier in the episode and gives him back his tiger spirit to save him. After driving Camille off with their combined spirits, Weiger dies and fades off completely. At the end, the remaining two Phantom Beasts suspect that Dai Shi's human side is getting the better of him, since banishing Weiger was too far in their eyes. In the following episode, they work to undermine Camille's actually clever plan of using a cloning formula on a monster, just roll with it, to prevent her from gaining Dai Shi's favor. When Dai Shi challenges them on this, they accuse him of having human feelings for Camille. Before he can retaliate for that, he suddenly collapses. In the following episode, To Earn Your Stripes, he starts having flashbacks to Jared's life again, causing severe headaches. When Camille offers him comfort and continually shows her loyalty, he thanks her.
You have never thanked me. Ever.
I need to find the others.
Dai Shi likes Camille, Dai Shi likes Camille. The other Phantom Beasts decide that they have to destroy Camille since she brings out his human side. When Dai Shi heads into a chamber, he flips a table, as you do when you're angry, and Dai Shi and Jared speak to each other directly, Dai Shi demanding he stop fighting his influence, while Jared proclaims he wants his life back and never wanted to hurt anyone.
Now that I have lived as a human, I know all I need to defeat them. But when the final beast war is over, all humans, including you, will be erased.
Jared states that his lion animal spirit will ensure his victory over Dai Shi.
I have the spirit of the lion. You have the strength of a lion, but not the heart. There's not a shred of nobility or goodness in you. That's why I chose you in the first place.
Meanwhile, RJ brings the Rangers back to the Show and Tell Academy because they've reached the stage in their training where they can earn their Master Stripes, aka the claw tattoos on their arms. Naturally, the three other Masters are there and say they have a final test. Casey is the only one to ask if they're actually ready for this, but Lily and Theo are all too eager. The test is to defeat their respective master in combat. Theo and Lily eventually overcome their masters using their animal spirits, but even though Casey does the same, he fails. Back over to the Phantom Beasts, they instruct some of their warriors to assassinate Camille, claiming the order comes straight from Dai Shi. The three warriors overwhelm her, but Dai Shi rescues her. Or does he?
You saved me. That means you do care about me, Dai Shi.
Dai Shi doesn't, but I do.
All this is witnessed by Casey, who informs the others. They're disbelieving that any part of Jared could still be around inside of Dai Shi. Later, Casey wants RJ to continue training him, but RJ refuses.
You gotta show me what I did wrong.
I'm through showing you things, Casey. I've taught you everything you need to know. How you use that knowledge. That's up to you.
The penultimate episode, Path of the Righteous, begins with Dominic telling Casey about To Kill a Mockingbird.
It's a classic story of redemption. One guy stands up for what he believes in, even though the whole town is against him.
Actually, it's about a lot of things. A coming-of-age story, racism, innocence and goodness in the face of overwhelming injustice and hatred. Redemption is not really one of them. Unless your version has Bob Ewell repent his evil ways on the witness stand. But the real parallel that Casey is going for is the standing up for what you believe in aspect. Which also isn't great as a parallel with To Kill a Mockingbird, since despite Atticus Finch's best efforts, Tom Robinson is still found guilty and murdered. I mean, I suppose you could argue that doing the right thing is correct regardless of the consequences, but given the usual lack of complexity of ethics in Power Rangers, somehow I doubt that's what they were going for. Still, the conversation does allow us to get inside Jared's head a bit more from Dominic's perspective, since he was Jared's roommate when they were both at the academy.
It's pretty rough. His parents weren't really around. Didn't seem like anybody cared about him. He wasn't a bad guy, though. It's It's funny how some things just...
Over in other character development land, Theo turns down an opportunity to hang out with Lily. Yeah, he's really had a thing for her for a while, mostly subtle, though obviously coming out more in other places.
But you made it painfully obvious that we're just friends, so why chase something that's never gonna happen?
That is very mature of you, Theo, and a very important lesson for kids, especially boys who may believe in the friend zone or crap like that. Unfortunately, he's still a douche to her for not wanting to hang out as just friends, plus Fran points out that he never bothered to actually try friggin' asking her on a date! Casey heads out into the forest, intent on following up his idea to save Jared, but is intercepted by Master Mao's ghost.
Jared cannot be saved.
I don't believe that, Master. I've seen the human in him when he defended Camille.
He's gone too far down the dark path. Jared has given himself over to Dai Shi.
I sure do hope you made plenty of friends. Because now you need to try and kill him.
You feel responsible for Jared's fall. If you hadn't come to the academy...
Then none of this would have happened.
When Master Mao suggests that Jared's heart wasn't pure and Casey knows that, Casey instead suggests that he was so alone he never had anything to fill his heart.
Casey! Are you trying to save Jared or redeem yourself?
Casey arrives at Dai Shi's temple and walks through the Rinshi guards, almost literally, since he just calmly moves past them while knocking them away. Badass. Casey confronts Dai Shi, trying to get Jared to free himself from him. This was not a great plan.
Whose idea was this again? All right, mine.
In a shocking twist for this season, instead of wrecking the command center, it's the villain's base that gets torn apart as they start crashing through walls and breaking crap. RJ refuses to let the other Rangers go to Casey's aid, saying it's his destiny. Casey manages to break through the Phantom Beast King armor, and Dai Shi demands he finish him off.
No, I won't destroy you, Jared. If you are Dai Shi, then destroy me.
Naturally, Jared is finally able to expel Dai Shi from his body. Unfortunately, Dai Shi's spirit form is pretty pissed off and takes it out on Jared. Camille goes in to try to save him, and both are knocked away. Casey unleashes his animal spirit on Dai Shi, forcing it back enough to allow them all to escape. And then get attacked by the Phantom Beasts. Fortunately, the other Rangers are finally allowed to join in, and everyone readies themselves for battle. Jared even morphs into his lion armor Dai Shi form, Camille reverting to her monster form for the fight instead of her Phantom Beast General form. The Phantom Beast Generals are destroyed in the ensuing fight, even letting Jared and Camille's animal spirits join in on the Zord fight as enhancement armor. It's only after that victory that Casey earns his Master Stripes.
A master cannot be a follower. When you chose to defy Master Mao and believe in your own convictions, your path to masterhood became your destiny.
Jared even submits himself for punishment, but of course Casey says none is necessary and they'll need their help to save humanity. However, Jared thinks he's done enough to screw over humanity and walks off with Camille. Dai Shi's spirit, meanwhile, assembles as much fear energy as he can to begin his final strike. Also, Scorch is still alive somehow. This leads us into our finale. Now the final fury. Jared and Camille return to the Forbidden Chamber, wanting to get as far away from the others as he can.
Maybe it's not too late for us to change.
Change? You mean back to the way I was before? A mean-spirited bully.
I've seen the real Jared, and he's not evil.
RJ suggests that Dai Shi's plan is to gather enough fear energy to resurrect every fallen warrior he's ever commanded and start another beast war. Scorch attacks the city to collect more fear, and RJ and Dominic go to confront him, while the others go to try to convince Jared to return and join them in the fight. The three masters also go to help RJ and Dominic as well, appearing out of nowhere. Because Jared is still being mopey despite the arrival of the others.
It's never too late to start over.
And whatever happened in the past, the fact is that we need you now.
The human race needs you. We can't defeat Dai Shi alone.
He still refuses to use his lion spirit after all the harm they've caused. The three original Rangers now take on Scorch, finally destroying him, while the others protect the people from the invading Rinshi army. Dai Shi makes his presence known and opens a portal to the spirit world, unleashing pretty much every monster they've ever fought. The Spirit Rangers arrive and... wait, they're separate from the Masters? I mean, I guess that makes sense being spirits and all, but at the same time, that wasn't exactly made clear before. But whatever. Massive brawl. Rinshi, overlords, monsters, phantom beasts. It's chaos and punches and explosions everywhere. And there's even some more help. The Spirit Masters plus Master Mao.
When Dai Shi opened the portal, we came through it as well.
I wouldn't miss this battle for the world. Oh, you think this is Harem of the Dead, you shrimp dick fuck nugget?
And with a fight like this and the style of martial arts they employ, naturally there's only one music choice.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning.
And here's where we get absolutely silly.
We must reach the highest level of our animal spirits!
No. Just no.
Well done. Good riddance, evil beasts.
No. Dai Shi absorbs the Master's animal spirits and becomes that thing. Flit suddenly appears to Camille and Jared, informing them of what's happened.
The Yellow Ranger once told me inside I was a good person. I'm going to prove she was right.
She asks Jared if he's coming too, but he doesn't reply.
The human race needs you.
I've seen the real Jared, and he's not evil.
It's never too late to start over.
You sound like a majestic fucking eagle!
Dai Shi is kind of like some sort of centaur, hydra, King Ghidorah thing. It's kind of cool. Jared arrives on the scene to help.
You told me I had the strength of the lion, but not the heart. But I'm here to show you you're wrong. The heart of a lion is noble and good. I can be too.
Dai Shi is weakened by the attack, allowing the original three Rangers, the Chosen Protectors, to deal with them.
A Paishwa master doesn't ask. He knows. There is a higher level of our animal spirits.
One that has never been reached before, by student or master.
It's time to push beyond the possible, to our highest potential.
So their final level is a big glowy ball. Okay. Anyway, Dai Shi is defeated.
Are you okay?
I'm better than okay. I'm good.
Later, Casey is teaching cubs at the Paishwa Academy. Even Camille and Jared are part of the class.
Aren't you two a little old to be taking a beginner's class?
It's never too late to start over.
And hey, Master Mao is still a ghost.
Hope you've enjoyed your first stage of training, ladies.
Lily, you know our standing Tuesday lunch appointment. What would you say if sometime we turn that appointment into a date?
I'd say, what took you so long?
And Camille turned Flit back into a human, so that's a plus. Dominic is leaving, for some reason, and invites Fran to come along with him.
Oh, but first, I've got to go home and get my backpack and my camera and my journal and some extra socks in case it's cold.
Breathe, Fran.
Jungle Fury is a great series, but not without its flaws. Despite a lot of great build up to the end, the final episode feels very rushed as they have to resolve a whole lot of things in the brief time period they have. It feels like they could have done that better by not bringing Scorch back immediately after his defeat in the last episode and just let it be a Rinshi army, especially since after they destroy him again, he's right as rain a minute later with the resurrection of all the other evil forces. The Spirit Masters returning was great. Having them turn into their highest level of animal spirits was just stupid and unnecessary, especially for such a brief showing of it. If you're gonna go through the trouble of those outfits, why not give them all Spirit Ranger forms? I don't know, maybe that was a Geki Ranger thing they decided to keep, but it was just dumb. The pacing is vastly improved over Overdrive. While some plots feel like they resolve too easily in spots, like the finale, the individual episodes don't feel like they're too rushed, nor is the music anywhere near as grating. Another example of a rushed finale is RJ's werewolf subplot, which was introduced, then over and done with in 2 episodes, and all he needed was reassurance from Fran of his good nature to restore balance. Yes, in a later episode there's some conflict there again, but it's a 1-episode thing that's more about Flit than it is any of RJ's own issues. There's also a problem of inconsistent writing between episodes. I mentioned earlier how the Overlords said the Rangers were irrelevant without their master, And then in the next episode, the Rangers are relevant enough again to try to lure them out. There's how easy it is to escape from the spirit world despite it really being the friggin' afterlife and not something to easily escape from, you'd think. In Tiger's Fall, Lion's Rise, RJ tells Casey that he shouldn't be discouraged by the loss of his animal spirit, that he makes the animal spirit greater, not the other way around, and he's able to morph after focusing himself enough. Very next episode?
Besides, without your spirit, you're weaker. You might not be able to morph.
Although what's especially weird in that regard is that these 2 episodes were directed by the same guy. Hell, it doesn't even end there. Despite it being a plot point in several episodes that the Claw Cannon requires the Tiger Spirit to function, the others are able to use it without him. While we're on the complaining train, some annoying quirks have carried over. Kalash explosions are still around, though not nearly as bad as last season. Likewise, we've still got people yelling, "Fire!" when they shoot something. You know what's weird about the Kalash explosions? I've read that it was a broadcast standards thing, that they weren't allowed to show explosions in front of the Rangers. Except that still happens, and there's still plenty of footage of sparks and explosions on the Rangers themselves, so why is that okay, but not the other times? Man, standards and practices makes no sense. Still, they were considerably more restrained this season with these things. The fight scenes were fantastic. The kung fu focus allowed for a lot of complexity in the fight scenes, and genuine fight scenes as opposed to constant use of explosions. Sure, there's wire fu and special effects at times, but the movement was all over the place and sophisticated. There were tons of unmorphed fights that really got to let the characters show their stuff. It also helps that the actors were all genuinely good in this. Nothing came across as stilted or forced, aside from the occasional one-episode guest star, but nothing bad enough to comment on, really. As said earlier, the show had a much stronger serial nature to it than Overdrive, and one could argue it also handled multiple villain factions better too. I don't say this stuff to keep ragging on Overdrive, it's just it feels like Overdrive was a dry run for elements that were perfected in Jungle Fury. Dai Shi, Camille, and the Overlords had much more distinctive personalities to them with their own motivations and desires. Even the Phantom Beast generals, while lacking a lot of individual characteristics, have their own agendas on hand that end up clashing with the other villains. And for the first time in a long time, we've got monsters who follow a similar theme. They're all based on animals. Although what's even cooler is how they're made. Individual Rinshi are modified with an animal spirit, giving them an in-between form of an enhanced Rinshi as well as their monster form. The idea of generating fear as a power source is great for Power Rangers in general, which makes sense why it's later reused in Samurai, but we'll get to that another day. Dai Shi being merged with Jared creates a fascinating villain, though it's unfortunate that a lot of the more interesting aspects of him come about because of him being merged with a human, as opposed to simply having different aspects to his personality. Despite Dai Shi claiming that Jared is gone, when Casey calls him out for being kicked out, he replies that Casey is responsible for that humiliation. It's moments like that that show Jared's own personality coming through, his jealousy and sense of betrayal over the whole thing. Dai Shi brings out the worst parts of Jared's personality more so than he himself. He was a bully because of the bullying he received when he was younger, showing how detrimental and damaging that can be to children. However, as Dominic pointed out, he wasn't a bad person, it's just bad circumstances in life had hardened him and made him be more of a jerk. It's only when he was confronted with the loss of his own life and identity and seeing evil greater than him that he started to recognize just what a dick he'd been. It does make me wonder how much of Dai Shi himself we actually saw during the series and how much of it was a combination of the two personalities. And how much I wished it was Dai Shi in the driving seat for most of it, since it would mean the villain underwent a heavy arc and had his own moral code. The aforementioned bowing to a greater authority in the Overlords until he was stronger than them. And at first he's manipulative and uncaring when it came to Camille.
If you're waiting for a thank you, move on. Loyalty is what I expect.
And then later, Dai Shi saves Camille from Guardians of the Nexus. Dai Shi later insists that Camille be made a Phantom Beast general over their objections, even letting her pick her animal spirit for it. It seemed like he had actually grown fondness and respect for Camille after all she'd done for him, while other evil forces have been less compassionate towards their underlings. It could be because Dai Shi, having experienced weakness and subservience to more powerful evil forces, may know humility and understand loyalty. But then Jared later says that it's him who cares about Camille, not Dai Shi. Seems like a wasted opportunity is all, but it's very welcome because of the interesting dynamic it created and wondering what was going to happen next between the characters. Their relationship is so fascinating. Wait a second. That symbol on Dai Shi's flag. Is that a slice of pizza? Oh my god, it is! Dai Shi really is the evil pizza that was no match for a simple stoplight! And anyway, then there's Camille herself. While not exactly complex, she truly does have loyalty to Dai Shi until Jared reveals his lack of caring for her. And it's easy to understand why she's so devoted to him.
Dai Shi doesn't care for your life, but you risk everything to protect him.
It's called loyalty, and he will repay me tenfold when this is all over.
Even when he's cruel to her, she thinks it'll all be worth it. It's almost like an abusive relationship with someone who does care for her and is trying to help her versus someone who's just using her as a means to an end. Although what I find most fascinating is that for a time, she seems to be the only one actually interested in fighting the Rangers and causing evil. During the initial Overlord stuff, Dai Shi and Carnosaur are more interested in training than anything else, so Camille just keeps sending monsters off to do their job, hoping to gain favor with them. Her desire to have a phoenix animal spirit comes across to me as her thinking that this is a new beginning, a rebirth opportunity for her now that Dai Shi seems to actually trust and favor her. Flit's backstory was that he was an ancient enemy of Camille who battled her, but she cast a spell on him that transformed him into a fly. She ate him, which allowed her to take on a human form. Unfortunately, as part of the curse, he can't be out of her stomach for too long or he fades away. And his backstory is really all there is to him aside from the plot points I mentioned during the review. The other main villains are all pretty much evil for evil's sake, with of course their goals of destroying all human life, but they don't really do anything else, which is probably why it's so good that we had Dai Shi and Camille as the ongoing force, constantly developing and growing stronger along the way. I do find it kind of fascinating that the Phantom Beasts don't care all that much about Dai Shi having a human side, until he displays human traits. Yet their jealousy of Camille having his favor is a negative human trait too. And instead of trying to separate Dai Shi from Jared and having him possess something else, they decide to try to destroy and discredit Camille, backstabbing the one who's purely of their kind instead of the actual human element in the room. Moving on to the Rangers themselves, it helps considerably that we have less Rangers this season and more to talk about in general about them. Let's start with Lily, who probably has the least overall development, but still shined through with her personality. She's the heart of the team, which is demonstrated throughout the series as her having kindness and compassion for everyone around her. Of course, that kindness can lead to consequences, as in push to the edge, where her kindness to Camille, in human disguise, resulted in her being inspired to release Jellica. And she actually felt pretty bad about it too.
She played me, Theo. She totally played me.
No, it feels that way, but you should never feel badly about reaching out to someone.
Well, maybe she's right. Maybe I am a fool for always seeing the bright side of it.
She's also the only one who thought that Flit was cute when he came to the Rangers. When Dominic came, while she too was irritated by some of his antics and worried about him as a Ranger, she didn't hate him and accepted him right out of the gate. The disappointing thing for her is that she never really had an arc like the others. Ultimately, her finality is getting together with Theo, which is fine, they always were close, but as Theo himself pointed out, she never really seemed all that interested in moving their relationship beyond that. Dominic equally has development issues in terms of an overall arc, but that only comes from being late in the game. Most of his development came in just his initial appearance, and in the remaining third of the season, there just wasn't any time to do a whole lot of individual development with everything coming to a head. However, his prankster and carefree personality was most welcome at that point. The rest of the team had gotten very comfortable with things. They were friends, they were close, and they were all serious and dedicated in their roles and tasks. He shook up the status quo, made them question his own methodology and skills. It's easy to see why he was such good friends with RJ, who had his own carefree thing going for him, just in a different direction. Speaking of, RJ is a very different sort of mentor. And he was awesome. He's like a surfer dude, but not an idiot. He's just a good blend of the wisdom of a master while being in tune with the real world and slang. He's kind of like an old hippie guru. He's an environmentalist, though it's not really shown that much in the series. What he did have, though, were daddy issues, mostly because his father was kind of a douche.
I like things my way. It shouldn't affect you.
Of course it affects me. Everything you do reflects on me. You're my son.
When Casey wants to be taught by Master Finn, it feels like he's trying to use him as a surrogate son, since RJ had wanted to follow his own path and discover his own spirit animal instead of following in his family's footsteps with the shark technique. His father was very strict in his training technique and rigid in his methods, whereas RJ tends to prefer using unconventional means to teach his students. RJ uses metaphor and everyday activity to show how even the ordinary can be utilized for training and skill, while his father was more professional and straight to the point. Both are perfectly valid teaching methods, it's just what they preferred to use. RJ's could be considered a much more laid-back approach, which could be a simple pushback to his father's strict parenting. It's easy to assume that just like with training, Master Finn could have been more regimental in every aspect of their lives. However, what I probably like most about RJ is that despite his attitude, he's still intelligent and wise. His wisdom is genuine and it's actually helpful. He's not just spouting platitudes or inane babble, it's training whether the Rangers realize it or not. Theo is very nicely nuanced. He's egotistical, uptight, and is very strict in what he wants, how to do things, and super confident in his abilities. Even Lily claims he has control issues. While described as the brains of the team, it'd be more accurate to say he's the discipline of the team. He's the one who seems to be the most advanced in skill, able to do multiple things at once. However, that results in overconfidence and being an overachiever. When his confidence is shaken, it hurts him hard, like in Can't Win Them All, when it just gets silly when he loses a fight, even though they've lost fights several times already. And it wasn't even that he lost so badly, he got kicked once by a monster who can stick to the side of a building. A better example, though, was in Blind Leading the Blind, where Master Swoop taught him about focusing in on a single goal and the difficulties he had in not trying to do more than that. And it's not simply a matter of saying, your methods of overachieving is wrong, your accomplishments are not real accomplishments, or something like that. It's actually pretty sophisticated for this show.
No one's asking you to change who you are inside. Your abilities and work ethic are not in question. Life is a series of obstacles. Sometimes they can come all at once, but we can't conquer them all at once.
He's also the only one whose spirit world fear actually kind of made sense for his character. The fear of being able to perform in front of others. Or at least a fear of failure in front of others. He sucked at singing, and because it's something he's not good at, it's easy for him to lose faith and confidence when he's so skilled at so much else. How did he get this way? Well, we learn in Blue Ranger Twin Danger that he has a twin brother, Lewin, who throughout their lives got most of the praise from others because of his adventurous lifestyle. His overachieving was his attempt at getting some attention, so when he actually did do so, it kinda got to him, made people expect him to excel and overachieve because to others it seemed so effortless for him, when in reality it was a bit of hell for him. The romance with Lily felt a little forced, but not too much so, and they had been hinting at it for a while, it's just they didn't really do anything with it until the very end. It just felt more like shipping fodder than anything else. Fran is also lacking an overall arc, which is a shame since there was a lot to like about her, but she definitely has her moments. She's alone most of the time, without brothers or sisters, and her parents are always kinda busy, and everyone pretty much takes advantage of her. It doesn't paint the Rangers in a very favorable light, but several times they are at least willing to acknowledge they're being dicks to her. What bugs me is that she had to find out for herself that they were Rangers. I don't mind them having a secret identity, it's that they maintain it during stupid times like with Fran. Her knowing they're Rangers doesn't actually alter their relationship most of the time, since she still needs to stay behind and run the restaurant when they have to go rushing off to fight the monster of the day. It seems like what they could have done with her instead was to grow so resentful of the others that eventually she became evil herself. Kind of a parallel to Jared stuff, and they could have brought her back, maybe made her a new Ranger near the end. Sure, I like the Spirit Rangers, but this team has 8 Rangers and only one of them is a woman. I think we can do better in that regard. And don't think she'd be unwilling to be a Ranger. When Lily has been turned into a jerk due to a monster's quills, Fran is ready to take Lily's morpher and go help the Rangers herself. Hell, she already stared down RJ in his werewolf form, and she was the one who got him to make peace with his wolf spirit. She had a crush on Dominic pretty much from the start. Aside from him just being a very fun kind of person to hang out with, the two had bonded over their shared love of books, and she had shown some jealousy in caring for him when he had expressed some romantic interest in others. And finally, there's Casey. His arc is really about him coming to terms with his own inexperience over the series and to eventually come into his own as a master. He's considered the strength of the team. which tends to fit him. He was usually the first to develop some new power or strategy that overcame their opponents. Initially, he lacked a lot of confidence and had a need to prove himself to the others. That often resulted in impetuous decisions, like wanting to accept Dai Shi's direct challenge early on in A Taste of Poison, but over time became calmer and more controlled. Except when, as he grew as a leader, he felt his position was challenged or that his way was best. And sometimes it was, but other times it was clearly more out of fear of proving that his early self-doubt was justified and he wasn't worthy of leading, hence why not getting his master stripes affected him so. Something that wasn't really developed until the end, but came as a very surprising turn for his personality, was the idea that he felt guilty over Jared being taken over by Dai Shi, or that Dai Shi had escaped at all. He hadn't wanted to start a fight with Jared, but it was in doing so that led to Jared being kicked out, Dai Shi being freed, and all of this happening. It's easy to imagine Casey every night having to convince himself that he was valuable, he was skilled, and it wasn't his fault at all that this had happened. And then he doesn't get his master stripes despite doing the same things as Theo and Lily, and suddenly that all crashes down on him, making him think he wasn't as good as he thought he was, that all of this really was his fault. Him offering himself to Dai Shi to be killed wasn't only about proving he still had a human side, but also could be seen as his form of atonement for all that had happened. But of course, it wasn't about him not being strong enough or good enough, since Casey is really good. He's damn good. What he lacks in experience, he makes up for in being a very quick study and fast learner. It was there from the start. He picked up how to do pizza tossing quickly. Theo taught him how to use the nunchaku, and he became skilled at them quickly. He was the first to use Jungle Master mode, and even during the Master's test, he was able to copy Theo and Lily's movements just from seeing them perform them for a few seconds, even though he probably possessed a very different sort of normal fighting style that was more natural to him. Overall, Jungle Fury is quite underrated and deserves more love and attention. Great music, likable characters, a fairly compelling storyline, and kick-ass fight scenes make for a classic of the show. It shows training and development with the Rangers instead of just letting that happen off-screen, or just irritating repeats of, "We can do it!" or crap like that. The season acknowledges the imperfection of its characters and actually works to change them instead of just making them up at the end or anything like that. Although we do have 2 episodes that are really morality plays for little kids that are but I've seen worse on this show. Next time, we talk about probably the most divisive series and the end of the Disney era of the show, Power Rangers RPM.
Tomorrow is another day.
And tomorrow, today will be yesterday. I always like to leave my enemies with a confusing thought.